It's so exciting to be here with you. And I'd love to share some of the work that we've been doing around issues of environmental awareness and sustainability. I'm currently the Director of Creative Pedagogy at the New York Hall of Science. Sounds like a very big and strange term, but really my job is I get to work across departments within the museum to really think about how to make STEM accessible beyond the walls of our museum as well as within the walls, working with our explainers, but also in developing applications or apps and digital media. And so that's the project I really wanted to share with you today, because it's very connected to this issue of sustainability and resilience. And I obviously I do not work on this project alone. That's what's exciting about my job. I work with a lot of amazing creative people who help build and design these applications. So so the project I wanted to tell you about is called The Pack. It's an open world game that basically pairs environmental awareness with computational thinking. And I'll tell you a little more what that means in a second. But behind me, you see a background, and that background, I don't know how many of you have been to NYSCI and have visited our Connected Worlds exhibit, but Connected Worlds is as if you're walking into a video game. It's an immersive environment that allows you really to understand how the world is connected, how biomes and different environments are connected. And so we wanted to find a way to kind of extend that work beyond the walls of the museum. So you didn't have to only come to NYSCI, but we can give that experience to anyone who can download our apps for free and try them out. And that's how the Pack was born. The Pack takes place in the fictional world of Algos, where ecosystems are faltering and resources are scarce. And you, the avatar, as the avatar, have to really kind of restore the environment, but not by yourself, with the help of everyone. So that is the Pack. Very dreamy, very peaceful, just like Connected Worlds. But actually, what's really interesting about this, you're seeing the end product of what we've developed, but that development has taken over several years of really thinking through what is it that we want to get across and have kids explore in this very playful and open world way. And many of you maybe in the audience have played open world games. There's not one way you get to play, but in this case, what you were seeing was that pack of characters, you have to team up with them. And to engage in this idea of computational thinking, which is so important, basically is a critical thinking process, right? That allows you to break down problems and solutions in a way that a computer can understand them. And so much of climate science, so much of understanding our environment involves that kind of thinking as you're building models of environments and everything else. So we were trying to pair those two things together. But in the work that I do, I think I'm just going to share my screen for a second. What I'm going to show you here is, at the very beginning, we start with concept development. It no way resembled what you saw in the beginning. We were working with people from the Columbia Earth Science Institute, and we had characters who constituted fire and ice and wind, and we're trying to model environmental forces. But what we found through prototyping and testing is that kids were acting like God, and that wasn't the sensibility that we were trying to promote there. So we had to go back to the drawing board. And when we did, that's through, again, this process of prototyping and testing incessantly with kids and trying to come up with what are the representations that allow kids to really understand relationships. Like when they have an action in one place, it affects the environment. So you're able to dig channels of water with your little creatures, you're able to plant seeds, but you can also overdig, you can overplant. And all of that thinking goes into that, into this process, but you're not playing God. You're not, taking the forces of wind, earth, and fire to do those things. So, that's really the scope of the work. I know we don't have a lot of time and I want to leave time for everyone else, but the pack now, that last screen we were showing that went by so quickly, was we're at the phase now, and this is another piece of my work, is we built and designed it with our colleagues at Design.io, Theo and Emily Watson, wonderfully creative programmers and graphic designers. We then tested all of this out with kids, made it available on the App Store, and now we're spreading it out into schools throughout New York City. And there we still have to do the important research of like, what do teachers need to know? Like, how is it that they support using this game in a good way with their students? What is it that they get nervous about? Because, you know, teachers sometimes aren't as big game players as their students are. And it's about getting them comfortable with really bringing out the concepts of sustainability and this computational thinking side by side in their classrooms. So that's where we're at. I can go on and on forever about this project because it's been complex and fun and interesting, but I just wanted to give a few little highlights of that work. At NYSCI, a lot of our model of doing research and development is co-design. So, and it also involves, very much like Jacques described, an interdisciplinary teams. So there are people like me who are the hybrid, like, yes, some science background, but really more on education and learning and development. We have developmental psychologists, we have graphic designers, we've had, you know, all along the way, climate scientists who helped inform, you know, are you messing up the science here in your game and in your model? And lots of advisors. So the diversity is critical. It's part of the model of the way we try to do our R&D, and it makes the end mostly what you're creating actually be meaningful for different audiences. So yeah, the diversity piece, I think, really super important, both within the teams you're working. And the other thing I should just say, and knowing this from NYSCI, the PAC is like one of many projects that I'm on. And so we cross lots of different things, and you have to kind of be able to work with different teams depending on the problem, right, you're trying to solve, or the thing that you're trying to design. So and that to me is the exciting part of work, you know, that opportunity to always be interacting with these diverse perspectives, because there's always someone in the room that makes you think something you never thought about before. But it makes it all the much better. I think a lot of important skills were featured here. I'll add one that maybe people don't think about often, I think, in STEM particularly, is empathy. So especially in engineering design, you really do have to put yourself in the place of others and be a really good listener and being able to take in different perspectives. So part of that bridging job that Lauren's talking about comes from a place of empathy, right? Like that there's going to be a lot of expertise in these fields. There's going to be a lot of expertise around the table. And you have to figure out how to cultivate it. And also in terms of designing and making things, I think the really important thing is keeping your eye on that, you know, like, you know, what is it, you know, if I'm designing for children, let's say, you know, how many children am I working with? Who am I seeking out? How do I pay attention to, you know, rather than counting, oh, that one had a very different perspective. It's like, oh, no, that one different perspective is going to give me a new perspective on what I have to redesign. So I think that's kind of a critical skill that gets, that puts you in a really good position if you cultivate it and work from that place.